Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. I hope you're all having a great day. Today I am going to be revisiting my thoughts on the Steam Deck. It has officially been 1 full year since I received my Steam Deck in the mail from Valve, and I am really excited to just kind of go over what I've thought over the last full year, any regrets that I have, any pros or cons that I've sort of learned from that time frame, and also just what games I prefer to play on the Steam Deck or what ways I prefer to play on the Steam Deck in general. So let's go ahead and get started with the first thing. You know me, I don't like to waste time, and that of course is going to be the overall build of the Steam Deck. Is it still holding up the same way it was when I got it? And I'm very happy to report there has not really been any changes to its form. It is still just as solid, just as durable, and just as well built of a machine as it was a year ago. I'm very careful with my devices, but it's definitely apparent to me that it doesn't really have any flaws in the build department, which is great to see. That's just kind of surface level when we're talking about the physical details of the Steam Deck. Obviously, the more burning question on a lot of people's minds is, has it been able to play all of the newest games that come out on Steam over the last year? You know, we're talking games like Hogwarts Legacy, Modern Warfare 2, Final Fantasy VII Remake, Spider-Man Remastered. There's a lot of different titles that over the last couple years have come out on Steam, and it's really impressive to say that the Steam Deck has been able to handle all of those games in much better performance than I was actually expecting. With the exception of Modern Warfare 2, every other game that I had just talked about, I've actually played on the Steam Deck, and I was able to get, on average, about 40 frames a second for a minimum. Only game I think that dipped a bit more in that department was actually Hogwarts Legacy, but that was also before a few patches that recently came out, so it is possible that that is actually fixed by now. I've noticed that whenever I play a brand new game on the Steam Deck, as soon as it gets a couple patches, sometimes it actually does run better, and runs at higher frames depending on how the developers actually patch the game. So it really just depends, but for the most part, even Resident Evil 4 Remake most recently, I've managed to get a solid 40 frames a second with, I would say, medium to low settings if I'm remembering correctly. All in all though, even if I hook it up to a TV, I do actually get a pretty solid 50 to 60 frames. So it really just depends on which ways I'm using it, but for the most part, no game is unplayable on this thing, and I have yet to encounter, outside of a weird Sonic CD glitch when I first bought the system, but that's been fixed. So other than that, that's the only game I've not been able to get to run on the Steam Deck. Everything else has been flawless. And I really have to hand it to Valve, honestly. It's extremely hard to make a device that's future-proof, much less a device that is older hardware and still future-proof. A perfect example is when the Nintendo Switch came out. That was running components that were at least 2 years behind the release of the Nintendo Switch. We're talking about processors from 2015 releasing in a new packaged version in 2017. So the fact that the Steam Deck is able to punch above its weight in a lot of ways and is able to maintain really good quality of both performance and visuals is really impressive, and it really shows that Valve took a lot of time to make sure that they were giving the consumer the best possible experience. Big kudos to Gabe and the team over at Valve for that. So now that I've gushed about how well the Steam Deck is still holding up, let's go ahead and kind of touch on a couple of cons that I had, I would say, more early on in the experience of the Steam Deck rather than now. And thankfully, that's because Valve has consistently maintained updates and patches to this thing to a point of where at one point we were getting a new update almost every day. And that's really showing that Valve is committed to offering the consumer updates and making sure that they deliver the best possible product over the course of time, and not just at the time that you buy it. The reason I bring this up is because those cons that I was mentioning were actually patched out for the most part, or at least fixed in a way that I found satisfactory. So a perfect example is when the ability to play on the TV was first announced. I was really curious to see what that would be like. So I ended up getting a USB-C dock and ended up hooking it up to my TV. And I have to say that it was honestly a pretty crappy experience because it wasn't actually optimized to run in the normal SteamOS, but rather it actually wanted you to boot the system into desktop mode, and it actually ran better there if I was to start a game in desktop mode and then actually do it from that point. So it was a very weird situation. I don't really know what the process of it was or why it was requiring that, but thankfully that got fixed almost a few weeks after I even brought it up in one of my previous videos, and ever since then it's been really smooth sailing. I actually take my Steam Deck a lot to my family's house, and I've actually ended up playing with my little brother a lot. So what I do is I normally just take that and I have a dock that I leave there. I hook it up and we have a great time. It actually works out really, really well. And I'm glad to see that Valve was willing to commit to making that experience better for everybody, and they kind of knew what to focus on. So that con has kind of been erased. A couple of other notable cons that people have kind of asked about over the course of the last year were things like battery life, memory card swapping, if there's any sort of dissonance between the memory card usage, such as if you're running a game off of a memory card versus the system. Thankfully, those issues were not really issues that I experienced. On the front of the memory card side, those I've really never had an issue with. I would say one time in the beginning, I did kind of have a problem when I was switching a couple memory cards, ones that had emulators on them and ones that were strictly games from Steam. But thankfully I was actually able to hot swap them, so it got fixed within like a day or so of me having that problem. But essentially that has never given me an issue outside of that one time. And then as far as battery life goes, actually I think the battery life holds up surprisingly well. I didn't really expect much when I first got it, but the fact that I'm able to run games like 360 PS3 generation at about 4 hours, that's really excellent, honestly. I wasn't expecting to get that much out of it. And even bigger games, honestly, things like Cyberpunk or Red Dead, I can typically get about 2 hours if I kind of finagle my settings properly. So the fact that I'm even able to play a game that big and that size, plus that demanding graphically, the fact that I can at least get 2 hours out of it makes me feel like Valve did a really, really good job on compromising in particular ways with the battery. Obviously, better battery is always welcome, and I always appreciate seeing or having a bigger battery in a system, but the fact that I'm able to get this much usage out of it is fantastic, and I'm really grateful for the strides that they put in it. In the cons department, those were pretty much the only cons that I actually experienced over the course of the last year with the Steam Deck. I do know of a couple other notable ones that people have mentioned, such as Joy-Con drift, or rather stick drift, as well as some booting errors and some complaints about the fan noise or even just the fan itself with how hot it runs. But honestly, none of that stuff affected my Steam Deck, and none of that affected my enjoyment of the system, much less I don't even think I experienced some of that myself. The only thing I can really speak to is it does get a little hot with the fan, but it really also depends on what game you're playing and how long you're playing it. So a lot of different factors kind of flow into that. But I would say if you're talking about just the cons I experienced, those are probably the most common that I had. And other than that, I really haven't had any others. So honestly, Valve did a great job over the course of the last year just addressing those little things. And they really did a great job listening to the community. So I would feel pretty good about buying the system knowing that there's not a ton of cons. I suppose the last thing I really want to touch on with the Steam Deck is how did I approach my experience for the last year with the Steam Deck? Was it more of a casual approach, like if you were to be a consumer just buying the device and pulling it up and just using it the way it was intended? Or did I mess around, tinker a lot? What was like the experience with that? So for me personally, I wanted it to be the most authentic Steam Deck experience possible. And what I mean by that is I wanted to treat it as if I was a new consumer who had no idea what I was getting into and just bought the device and started using it the way they would. And I can safely say if you are somebody who has a big library of Steam games, or even if you don't have a big library of Steam games and you just want to start PC gaming, I think this is the perfect start. The reason I say that is because it has a lot of different options available to you that are very easy to understand and help you get into PC gaming. First things first, if you want to treat it like a Nintendo Switch, all you got to do is buy a dock for it, hook it up to your TV, and then when you're ready to play it on the TV, pop it in. When you're ready, take it off. And then you have that portable experience, just like a Switch. Or if you're wanting a more traditional style PC gaming setup, all you have to do is plug it into your monitor, plug it into your keyboard and mouse, and you have the perfect setup that way as well. From the casual side of things, I can say that the Steam Deck is extremely user-friendly. My little brother, who is age 14, recently got one, and he's been able to pick it up no problem. He's consistently modding his games that he wants to play, such as Gmod and VR Chat, and he's having a really great time with it. I was really curious to see how a younger person, somebody who's not as experienced with electronics and computers, see how they would pick it up, and honestly, he's doing a great job. He's having a great time enjoying the Steam Deck the way it was intended, and he hasn't even had to fiddle around with any of the settings or anything. He's just playing the games as they come out of the box. So it's really a testament to see that a casual experience can really be had on this thing, and a really true casual experience. Overall, 1 year later, this device is still doing a phenomenal job. It's playing all the games I want at great performance and settings. It's doing a great job of being a portable device, having that flexibility of a PC when needed, and altogether just being a really solid device. Coming in at only $400 US, that's an incredible value, and honestly, I'm just shocked that they managed to pull it off. So 1 year later, yeah, you should get a Steam Deck. If you're interested in it at all, if you want to be able to have PC gaming on the go, or if you even just want to have cheaper games, most of the games that I buy from CD key sites that I can normally get for about a quarter of the price they normally are in the Steam store. And I can still use them on Steam because they're Steam games. So honestly, the Steam Deck for me is no brainer, especially if you're wanting to cut down on pricing on your games, or you just want a new experience altogether. So that's the video. The Steam Deck is a resounding yes, you should get it. It's a success. I honestly think it is one of the most interesting and one of the most innovative products in video game history that we've had in a long time. So kudos to Valve for making such a unique device. I think it's fantastic. If you do have any questions, feel free to comment below. I would love to know what you think. If you have anything you want to know about the Steam Deck, feel free to join my Discord as well. We do actually have a channel specifically for Steam Deck Talk. Yeah, if you like the video, please consider liking and subscribing, and thank you for all the support. I really appreciate anybody who was willing to watch this far into the video. So if you have this far, thank you. You have a great day and stay safe out there.